Right Balance podcast. I'm Diane Wright, your host. Here is where I'd like to share stories and interviews with leading practitioners and coaches, all under the health and wellness umbrella. We'll be including holistic therapies, inspirational people, and a vast array of experts to help you get on the right path. Join me every week for advice and information that will offer help and support, because we all need the right balance in life. Hi everybody, it's Diane Wright from Diane Wright Reflexology and also the host of the Right Balance podcast. This is episode 3 of my personal journey that I want to talk about and tell you all about, how I got into reflexology, and also my struggles and my journey with lupus and renal failure. And that's where I'm going to start, because at the end of chapter 2, we were up to 2007. And in 2007, my kidney function had deteriorated quite rapidly. I was only sitting on roughly 32% and gradually getting worse. And this was all detected through blood tests and my lovely consultant at the time. I really freaked out when I got my blood test results back, and I just started a new business, and I put a lot into it, monetary as well as time and energy. And it was like a bolt from the blue. It was like somebody's just put a big red stop sign in front of you. And if I'm honest, I freaked out. I just completely freaked out. And I suppose I'd gone nearly 20 years, which I had, of, being told it was going to happen. But actually, when it does happen, it's a shock. It's huge. It's really huge. So I didn't really know what to do, and I really withdrew into myself. And when people say they went to a dark place, I was down a dark hole, and I didn't want to come out of it. I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to think about it, and it was just horrendous. It really was horrendous. I then decided, my friend had just recently been accepted on a job in Saudi Arabia, and because of my medical background, my medical history, and I knew this wouldn't be a position, and it was looked at whether I should take or not. However, weird things happen in life. And what actually happened was I had some friends in the Canary Islands, and basically, as Northeast talk says, I just buggered off, and I regret it to a certain degree. However, when I landed there, again, doors open for a reason, and I got talking to some TUI or Thompson people, again with my history years ago in travel, and my outgoing personality is what they said. Would I be interested in looking after some rather exclusive clients of theirs in the Rue Plaza hotels, which was right up my street. I didn't want to be a rep. As much as there's nothing wrong with that, and I have good friends who were that wasn't really my thing. I wanted to be a little bit different, as always. So I started looking after these clients, and I was exceptionally well. That was in the March, and by the end of November, I'd lost about 4 stone in weight, and I really couldn't eat properly at all. I always remember I flew back in the August for my brother's wedding. That was 2009, and everybody complimented me on how well I looked, and I did. I felt amazing. However, the end of November, I had lost even more weight and became increasingly unwell, not really realizing it, I suppose. And it wasn't till the beginning of December that I was in my apartment, and a couple of my friends hadn't heard from me in the morning and came, and one particular friend, Anya, came and found me lying unconscious in the bathroom on the floor. This was a huge shock. I came round, didn't know where I was, what had happened. I hadn't injured myself, but I knew I wasn't well. I couldn't eat properly and everything. But in my head, I was in a really good space. And I just want to tell people that as well. However, they took me to the hospital where they did my blood tests, and I was sitting on about 3% kidney function. They do a test called creatinine, which also measures the toxins in your blood. So I was extremely toxic. That sounds weird to say. It wasn't pleasant. But they actually wanted to dialyze me there and then at the hospital. And I just didn't. I needed to get back to the UK. So the following day, I had a flight booked and I came back into Glasgow. My parents picked me up and took me straight down to the local hospital, which was in Carlisle, Cumbria, England. And within 6 hours of me arriving, I had been in surgery and had a tunneled neckline put in through my neck, which leads into some of the main arteries. And that was horrendous. I'm not going to lie about that at all. That was awful, very, very painful stuff. However, it needed to be done because I was literally poisoning my body. So for the very, very first time, I went down to the dialysis unit. And ironically, you know, there are many years ago that I've stated on here as well that the only dialysis that I knew about was at the Calvert Trust at Kielder, and watching these patients going in. I didn't feel ill. I didn't look ill. I take to the sun very well. So I was a very good color, you know, underneath the skin, I suppose, the body was screaming, absolutely screaming. But I really didn't feel unwell. I couldn't really eat, but I wasn't ill. Anyway, so I then went into the unit for the first time, absolutely petrified. And they connected me through the little ports that was sticking out my chest from this neckline. And this was where I would be attached to both the red and the blue line, which I'll explain in a moment. These are two lines that go into then the machine. And the machine is basically like a false kidney. It's like another kidney outside your body, if you like. That's the easiest way to talk about dialysis. So the red and blue lines, you have the red line, which is arterial, that's coming from the heart. And then the venous, this is the blue line, that's going back into your heart. So the blood is being taken away from your body, transferred through the membranes of the kidney or the machine, and cleaned. And all the debris or the toxin that is left in your bloodstream is removed, and then goes back into the blue line, clean blood, if you like, or everything's being cleaned. You sit on this machine for 4 hours, and I was extremely tired when I first started dialyzing, and I used to just put my head under my coat and go to sleep for the full 4 hours. They do on the unit, they do come round, depending on the time, they do come round with tea and toast if it's a morning session, or sandwiches in the afternoon, tea and coffee and water or juice or whatever. And when I first started using the machine, I tried a cup of tea and a slice of toast. No, it didn't work at all. Because what can happen is when obviously the blood's moving around the body, if you like, this is just my interpretation. As soon as you eat something, all the blood is then diverted to the stomach, because that's what it does. It helps you digest food. So it drops your blood pressure, and you can crash, or you can faint. Not crash, nasty crash, just like a faint. And this used to happen regular. So I couldn't eat or drink on the machine. So to watch everybody having these lovely hospital toasts, it's always the best. And I couldn't have that. Never mind, it wasn't the end of the world at all. I was extremely weak when we finished the session after 4 hours, extremely weak. I can remember my father coming to pick me up and having to wheel me out in a wheelchair to the car and then come home. When I came home, it was a feeling of a bit like the day after a really heavy session on the drink. And I used to drink then, not when I was dialyzing, but when I was in younger days. And it was the day after, it was that extreme fatigue, tiredness. You just have no energy. It's like all the juice has gone out your tank. There's just nothing left at all. So I used to get myself away to bed, and I would sleep for a good 2 or 3 hours. I usually did the morning shift. So by 5 o'clock, I started to pull through again, have some food, watch TV, read or whatever, depending on the season. And then I would be ready for bed again. I was all right. I was just really, really tired. When you're also on dialysis, everybody's different, but certain people, and this was my case, where they keep an eye on your phosphate and your potassium levels. So they put you on what is called the renal diet. So this is to exclude foods that are extremely high in potassium and phosphate. And if I'm honest, there's an awful lot of food you're not allowed to eat. So, for example, your potassium foods is potatoes and bananas, nuts, chocolate, chips, all them sort of things. Phosphates can be fruit, a lot of fruit, and even vegetables as well. So it's like, what the hell do I eat? I have this ongoing, which I'll get onto shortly, this ongoing fight with my dietitian, because I can eat rice cakes for 2 weeks and my levels can be through the roof. So this is where I go back again to everybody is unique, and drop the textbooks, drop what should happen. We are all unique. We may have organs and systems that work or don't work the same or similar, but how we function with them is unique to you. And this is how I roll. And it still is the way that I work with my reflexology. The textbooks they give you a guide. Yeah, that's fine. But when you get into the nitty gritty of a person, it's personal, hence the word. And that's super important to me, super important. So that went on for roughly 13 months, including obviously the late winter. I remember that winter we had horrendous snow. And even though my parents have a 4x4, we were really reluctant to take it out that year because it was horrendous. They actually contemplated getting the helicopter, but that wasn't going to be safe enough. So eventually we got the quad bike and pulled the car through that way. But interesting to get dialyzed. Yeah, you have to go. You've got no function. You can't even, if you eat less, it doesn't matter because your body's still pulling toxins in. It's cleaning the air that you breathe. All sorts of things, chemical changes go on. So we get over Christmas and the new year, and round about the beginning of December, they talked to me about having what's called a fistula. A fistula is the joining of a vein and an artery in usually your arm. Mine was in my wrist. And this is where they have the vein and artery joining, which then sort of gives you a big vein, if you like. Because of the size of, just to tell you, I'm going to talk about needles now. So if you have a phobia, maybe turn it down a little bit. So the needles that are used, there's 2 needles that go into your arm, into this vein. And again, you have blue one and a red one. So you have the blood coming in and out and returned back to the body. So for this to be used, it has to be a substantial vein, and there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of force going through that vein. So it's really important to look after it. So what I was taught to do was treat myself, and this was using the 2 needles, which go in about an inch apart. The way that I was taught was what they call buttonhole, which you then use the same entry point for both needles every time. So 3 days a week, the same point was used. And I actually, once I started with that was fabulous. And it sounds crazy to say, but I could start eating and drinking on the machine when I used this. This was super for me. I couldn't believe the difference. And actually afterwards as well, I didn't seem to be as exhausted. So you do get a better blood flow from the vein rather than through the vein in your neck, if you like. So this was a real big game changer for me. And I started, as I say, doing it myself, attaching to the machine. And it sounds crazy, but there's a real pleasure when you do it yourself, as in it doesn't hurt when you put, needles in for some strange reason. And you're treating your own body, if you know what I mean. So the pleasure is you really taken hold of your own systems, and you're really looking after everything yourself, which is really important. And for me, that was a game changer, huge game changer. Christmas comes and goes. We get over that, as I say, and January, February. At the time, when I was on dialysis, when I was starting to feel a bit better, I got back into the horses, and my horse that I purchased was an ex-race horse. I've never had an ex-race horse before, and I was told, oh my goodness, the wild da-di-da-di-da. Maisie wasn't. She was misunderstood, but she was some cookie. Anyway, where I kept the horse, there was a few girls on the yard there, and we'd all arranged for this particular Saturday night, the first Saturday in February 2011. We would go out for dinner. And where my parents lived was in the middle of nowhere. And where I was staying in the town itself was quite a good phone signal, but traveling up to where my parents lived wasn't so good. And I had been up there to picking some bits and pieces up before this night out. And I came back down to the other house in the town, and my phone was bleeping and bleeping, and it was my mother. Where are you? Where are you? I said, I've just landed at the house in the town. Stay where you are. We're coming to get you. Please answer your phone. The transplant team have been on the phone. Well, if you've ever had a phone call and you can't quite believe it, I tell you what it feels like to me. I'm sure it must be like when people sometimes win a competition and you think, this can't ever happen to me. Well, that was my feeling. I sat in the car, took a phone call from the transplant coordinators at the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle upon Tyne in England. And I didn't believe it. And I said, are you having a laugh? She said, honestly, Diane, I'm not having a laugh. Can you please, as soon as accessible possible, get yourself to the Freeman? She says, we have a kidney waiting for you. Oh my goodness. I remember, it's the things that you remember when these things happen. I remember going upstairs, my bag was always ready, sitting at the back of the cupboard with all the toiletries and things like this. And I've never really talked to anybody about the transplant. That was the weirdest thing. I think you just think it's never going to happen. And I didn't. Well, did I? Anyway, I picked my bag up and I stood in front of my mirrored wardrobe, and I had a word with myself and said, pull yourself together. This is going to be a life-changing for you. Double-edged sword, very much. Somebody has passed away. This was a cadaver kidney and has given you the chance of life. And it still kind of brings a little tear to my eye because of the way this happened. I am utterly and heartfelt grateful for that opportunity. And I get in the car with my parents, and they take me down to the Freeman Newcastle hospital in Newcastle upon Tyne. And it was about 10 o'clock at night on the Saturday night. So obviously the meal had been cancelled. And a lot of blood tests, an awful lot of blood tests. You can't believe how many blood tests was taken that night. So they test everything, anything and everything. Prior to you going on the transplant list as well, they take everything from your tissue type to your immunity levels, how they test your heart, your lungs, to make sure that you are fit enough for this between 6 and 8 hour surgery. And when I got there, they explained a little bit about me, that the lady who donated the kidney, it was a female, she was 67. She was donating both kidneys, and both kidneys were getting donated to patients. There was a gentleman who arrived first. It was actually his second transplant, sorry. And he was going to be going down first on the Sunday, all going well. And I was to go later on the Sunday night. So there's a lot of waiting around. There's a lot of heart fluttering. There's an awful lot of time in between where you're waiting and hoping that your blood tests are just spot on, ready for this. And also the kidney is perfect as well, because there is a lot of energy, time and money spent putting all the team together for this transplanted kidney to go ahead. So they will not transplant if the kidney's not right. So Sunday night came and I was wheeled down. I think it was roughly 7 o'clock. I can't remember the time actually. 7 o'clock on Sunday evening, I was trolleyed down. I was wetting my pants. I wish I could have. Forget the pun. But I was really, really nervous, really nervous. The funny thing about it was they mark your side they're going to transplant you in, and they test the femoral veins which run up the top of your legs to see which maybe is the stronger side. And they initially marked me on my right side. So I was put to sleep, never knew nothing more until this lovely nurse was waking me up, and we had an enormous lot of laughter, and I'm sure they get a lot of all sorts of different things commented after surgery with various drugs that have been used. And the very first words that came out of my mouth was, "Can you please thank all the vets for all their help?" And she says, "Diane, I can categorically tell you there's no vets in here." And then I went back to sleep. I had a lot of tubes attached to me. I had tubes in my neck, tubes up my nose, and mainly just oxygen tubes up my nose. I had a lot of lines in my neck. I had venflons in my hands and in my feet because I've got terrible veins. And a catheter, which I didn't know about at the time. However, so when I started to come around, I sort of, right, I'm going to feel my tummy, because the cut they do is very much like a half of a C, and it's very much across from your belly button right down to your pubic bone, if you like. It's 12 inches long, quite deep, big C. And I felt my tummy on the right, and I thought, there's no padding on there. Anyway, what had happened was when they had actually tested me again on the table, they found that my left veins were a lot stronger. So they decided to go on the left side. So that's why that was happened. That's the way it happened. So I went back to the ward, and the reason, sorry to be personal, but the reason for the catheter is they measure the urine from the output of the new kidney. I had no output at all. So I really panicked. Why is this not working? This was supposed to be okay. What can happen with a cadaver kidney is they can go to sleep. And my kidney slept for 7 days. And I was super, super panicking. I tried all sorts of healing methods on myself. On the 7th day, I got urine output, which might sound a bit bizarre when you're listening to this, but that is like, wow, this is happening. This is really, really happening now. And that was life-changing for me. That was absolutely life-changing. I didn't need to watch my diet. I could eat what I want and I could drink what I want, because I was limited to 750 ml a day, which is 1.25 pints of liquid. That liquid isn't just tea or coffee or water. If I didn't. That was fruit juices, that was gravy, that was yogurts, that was jellies, that was anything liquid. Soup, that was liquid. So 1.25 pints in 24 hours is not very much, let me tell you, and especially in the midday heat if it's summer. So day 7, we had some urine output, and by day 10, we had a function of roughly 23-24%, which wasn't the best, but this kidney was going to work. I wasn't not going to let it work. So yeah, everything started to get a little bit better. So in all, I was in 2 weeks in the Freeman Hospital at Newcastle. Superb team, absolutely faultless, amazing team, amazing. I then came home, and that was recuperation for 6 weeks, no driving because of this abdominal surgery. And there's quite a lot of pushing and shoving goes on. You're quite achy afterwards, but I felt amazing. I really did feel amazing afterwards. And that is where I'm going to leave this chapter because my life had one exciting journey thereafter. And for the gift of life to allow me to do that, I will be eternally grateful. To have a kidney transplant and have the gift of life. And I just want to say this at this time as well, you know, you don't realize until something doesn't work how it really affects you. Look after your kidneys, girls and boys. Until next time, this is the end of chapter 3. I'll catch up with you next time. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Right Balance podcast. Hope you enjoyed the content. Please tell your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the show. It will also be uploaded to the social media channels like Facebook and YouTube, including all the show notes. I hope you'll join me next week. Stay safe.